up, everyone? I want to talk a little bit more about how I think free market or private policing would work if we weren't forced to pay for the current form of policing that we're getting, which is funded through taxation. And that's happening whether you want it or not, and that's happening whether you are happy with the services or not. And if you're not happy, you don't really have another option to go to. You're still going to be forced to fund those police services. So right now, a lot of people are talking about defunding the police. For libertarian-minded people, this has been an idea that we've been discussing for a long time. People have been thinking about this and how this could work. And it's not just immediately to say we're not happy with government monopolized force-funded police, so there's not going to be any whatsoever. There is still going to be a demand for protection because not everybody's always going to be of the property rights mindset that's necessary to enable freedom. There's going to be people that haven't learned that yet and are still willing to violate other people's rights. So police servicing is always going to be necessary. The idea of protecting people is always going to be necessary. That idea starts with self-protection. You have the responsibility of protecting yourself first, and then from there, if you have the resources for that, you can then outsource that to other people. With that in mind, it is definitely possible to defund the current monopoly police services that we have. I think it's important to us to state that what happens after government policing is defunded should not immediately lead to some other form of involuntary policing, whether that's a government nationalizing or federalizing the police force, turning all of the police into agents of the government and using them as a national police force. That's a bad alternative. That's still going to be funded the same way through the immorality of taxation, and also even more so probably a bad option would be to have some sort of international global sort of police forcing, and that idea is sometimes tossed out with when people talk about having UN blue helmet police forces come in and impose some sort of international government's decrees onto everybody else. So instead of having any sort of even worse police force come in once the current government police forces were defunded, I would suggest and recommend that people look into ways that you could provide these services through free markets. All right, you can't fund anything with taxation because right away, if somebody doesn't consent to it, then that's immoral. You have to have the option to opt out. All right, so with that being said, how would the police services be provided then? First of all, you'd have the options of like service contracts. This would be like saying for this particular area, this geographic region is covered by a particular entity, a company, or group of people providing this service. You can then pay them a monthly or yearly subscription. This could be organized into specific neighborhoods, into HOAs. This could be organized by regions, cities, depending on how successful entity is. Their region would probably cover a greater scale. So service contracts would absolutely be possible, and it would work kind of the same under the same principle as the way that insurance does now. People pay for insurance, and the majority of people don't actually end up needing to make a claim. So the more people, let's say, pay like $100 a month or a year fee or something like that, then that would get pulled together with all the other people, and those funds would be, allocated when they are needed. Because out of 1,000 people in the area, a certain percentage, a smaller percentage, much smaller than even half, are ever going to actually need those protective services applied to them. So service contracts, different time frames, and you can have different plans depending on what sort of programs were available through these entities providing those. Next would be like specific fees, like say that you're not already paying a membership fee for the services. You could have something happen, and you can say, I'm in need of immediate services, come now. You could have the service providers come to you, and then they would have a bill for you that you would have to pay for those services right after they were used. And then it's possible that when you get that bill that you can say, okay, well, let's work this out into a yearly contract or something like that, and then pay it over time, and then you could then be grouped into a service contract after paying your specific fee, and go from there. So, and maybe you don't want to be grouped in, maybe you just want to pay off your specific fee and then not have any services again and just pay as you need it, because maybe in your life you've never even needed police servicing before, so just like on an as needed basis, that's a possibility. Then you could have special contracts as well. So like if a company wanted to provide security for its premises, you would have private security doing that. Or if say a entity owned a specific portion of a road or something like that, they could, like a company has a lot of business or something, and they have some sort of factory, all the areas surrounding that could be grouped together. So the possibilities for figuring out how this is going to get paid for are way more numerous than just to say that the only way to do this is through taxation. And when you have more options this way, more entities willing to provide these services, because of natural competition that happens, when you have this competition, then you're going to find some sort of market balance on prices. If somebody's able to provide the same services at equal quality but for cheaper amounts, then there's going to be a balancing out of price. Likewise, are you going to get a balancing out with quality? If somebody is providing really poor quality, say a missing person, something like that, and you get like one person to go out and look for this missing person and they don't find them, then somebody else has an actual task force for missing persons, and maybe their fees are higher for that specific service, but they actually are successful finding the person, then the competition aspect is going to be there for quality as well as pricing. I really think that this way of doing it is superior. Through trial and error, there would be improvements made to police servicing, but then, always going back to the morality in the first place. First, do no harm. Don't hurt people to fund your services. So don't take property from people. Don't take their money from them to provide them something in return, and then act like that's some sort of benevolent way to set up society. And you could probably try to say that was for safety reasons or for the good of society anyways. But if somebody wants to keep all their property, all their money, and provide their own protection services to themselves, and somebody's coming through and forcing them to pay for the servicing that's currently monopolized by the government, then when you have these problems coming up, that somebody kills an unarmed innocent person, and now you got all these riots and stuff, and you don't got any other option, you really have to think, if you're going to defund the police, what is going to be the alternative? Now, if you're somebody that thinks that defunding the police is going to be necessary, and also you think that you're going to disarm the society, you can't have those. Those are contradictory. If you defund the police and you task every individual, as you rightfully should, with their own protection, then you can't come in and tell them what can be used to protect themselves. You can't tell them what type of weaponry that they're allowed to use to protect themselves and their families and their homes. You can't tell them that they're allowed to use weapons at all. You can't say that you can only have baseball bats to protect yourself from a group of gang member invaders to your home. So think about the logical outcome here. The outcome is that without that taxation, there's going to be more freedom for people to protect themselves in a way that is efficient, and it's really infinite how somebody could come up with ways to protect themselves and their property. What do you guys think? Should we Believe the police funded how we have it? Are you happy with taxation? Is taxation a legitimate way to fund things in your eyes? Or is there a better way to do this? Is there a more moral way to do this? Let me know. All right, so I'm going to put a link in the description below where you can read more if you're interested in this. All you need to recognize first is that taxation is immoral. If you can't fund something without everybody's consent, if you have to take money from somebody without their consent, that's wrong. And then the other part is that it's not necessary. There's ways that this stuff can be provided. There's ways to provide everything without stealing from people first. If there's a high enough demand for something, then there's going to be a way to provide the supply. And in the process of providing the supply, you have to do it in a moral way. That's the only way that you're going to get services that everybody's happy with. There's more in the description below. I'm going to post a link to a piece of literature below published by the Society for Rational Individualism. It's called Society Without Coercion, a New Concept of Social Organization. And the author of this publication is JARRET B. WOLLSTEIN. All right, you can find this on Mises.org. So this will go into more than just policing services. This is trying to organize all of society this way. So if you're curious, you can see justice agencies, police forces, the court system, the penal system, armed forces, and so we're just looking right now in this video at police forces, but maybe I'll do some more videos on these other aspects of society and how you can do this free market and how you can do this voluntary and how you can do it in a moral way. All right, so links below. Thanks, guys.